Removing and regreasing a bottom bracket can be a bit complicated if you're not familiar with bike maintenance. Here's a step-by-step guide to help you through the process. Tools and materials needed. Bottom bracket tool compatible with your specific bottom bracket. Crank puller tool. Adjustable wrench or socket set. Grease. Rag or paper towels. Degreaser. 8mm Allen wrench. Start by securing your bike in a bike stand or turning it upside down, making sure it's stable and won't fall over. Remove the crankset. Take off the crankset by loosening the bolts or nuts securing the crank arms to the bottom bracket spindle. Apply some amount of WD-40 on the crank spindle to easily pull the crank. Use the crank puller tool to remove the crank arms from the bottom bracket spindle. Follow the instructions for your specific crank puller. Use the appropriate bottom bracket tool and an adjustable wrench or socket set to unscrew the bottom bracket cups from the frame. To remove the bottom bracket cups, turn clockwise for both sides to loosen the cup. There are different types of bottom brackets, so ensure you have the correct tool for your specific model. Apply some amount of WD-40. Clean the threads in the bottom bracket shell using a rag or paper towels. To dismantle the bearing from spindle, apply some amount of WD-40 between the spindle and the bearing to loosen the rusty particles. Place the bottom bracket in some stable like a bench vise. Grab a rubber mallet and apply some force on the spindle until the bearing are separated. Wipe off the old grease and dirt from the bottom bracket cups, spindle, and bearings using a rag or paper towels. Remove the plastic cover on the bearing for both sides using any thin object. Be careful not to damage the cover. Clean the bottom bracket components. Wipe off the old grease and dirt from the bottom bracket cups using a rag or paper towels. Regrease both bearings. Make sure everything is well lubricated. And put it back the plastic cover. Reinstall the bearing in the spindle, using a bench vise and rubber mallet. Be sure not applying excessive force not to damage the bearing. Clean the threads in the bottom bracket shell using a rag or paper towels. Apply a generous amount of bicycle-specific grease to the threads of the bottom bracket cups, spindle, and bearings. Screw the bottom bracket cups into the bottom bracket shell. Turn counterclockwise to tighten. Use the bottom bracket tool to secure the cups properly. They should be snug, but be careful not to over-tighten and damage the threads. Grease the crank arm bolts and the interface where the arms attach to the spindle. Tight the crank bolt using a 8mm Allen wrench. Be sure not to over-tighten. Spin the cranks to ensure smooth rotation. If there's any resistance or unusual noise, double-check your work. Adjust as necessary. Double-check all your work. Ensure that the crankset spins smoothly without any wobbling or resistance. Remember, if you're not confident in your abilities, it's always a good idea to have a professional mechanic perform this task to avoid damaging your bike.